So in a lot of sort of pop culture and pop history, we tend to see the peoples around the Middle Ages as being sort of static. And, there is not a lot of difference between how something looked at one point in the Middle Ages to another in the Middle Ages, which is very untrue. The Middle Ages, as we tend to define them, is a period of at least 1,000 years. And so, of course, cultures changed a lot throughout history during that period. But, again, in sort of a lot of our pop culture understanding, and even to some extent in our academic standing, we tend not to see this. Instead, people sort of portray the Middle Ages as a single monolithic thing. So, for instance, one of the classic examples of this is in the film Braveheart, which is, of course, set in sort of Scotland in the sort of high to late Middle Ages, roughly. And in it, there's sort of that scene where you have all of the Scotsmen who are wearing this dark blue war paint. And something that is, again, a bit of a common factoid in sort of these less academic historical communities, is how this isn't really true, that this is something that they've clearly borrowed most likely from the Picts, who are in late antiquity and the early Middle Ages, and there's no reason to sort of see this sort of use of war paint as anything that was going on in the actual time of Braveheart. However, if you're like me and someone who is more interested in late antiquity and the early Middle Ages, then you might know that this is something that actually works in reverse as well. So in sort of Braveheart, they sort of, again, give a not very accurate version of this, that sort of the Scottish at this time start adopting the use of long pikes as a way to sort of deal with cavalry and things like that. And if you look at the warfare of the Picts in, again, particularly less academic texts and various other sort of pop culture ways of depicting the Picts, things like war games and again, sort of pop culture history books and things like that, the Picts are often shown doing the same thing, fighting with long two-handed spears in a way that we don't actually really have evidence for being in use in the Pictish period. But again, we like seeing this sort of history of, in this case, of Scotland as this long unbroken chain, and that we can just sort of mix in the Picts and the high medieval Scots and just sort of mash them together because it's all medieval Scotland, it's the same. In a way that is just, again, just sort of not accurate for either period and can cause a lot of problems. One of which is, again, I think it sort of discredits a lot of the innovations and all of those sorts of things that happen in the Middle Ages in various parts of the world. And I think one of the reasons why this could be so troubling is that there's an obvious exception here, which is sort of invasions and conquests, where we sort of are propping up this narrative that sort of change and technological development is always caused by, some more advanced technological person, more advanced technological culture sort of conquering these less advanced peoples. Which again is a very sort of like colonial mindset. And I think the best example of this being sort of forced into sort of the pop culture view of the Middle Ages is the Battle of Hastings, which is, of course, part of, or sort of one of the central key moments in the Norman conquest of England. Because again, if you look at a lot of the pop culture portrayals of the Battle of Hastings and sort of the Norman conquest in general, whether that be in video games, in sort of non-academic artwork, or even sort of in the reenactment of Hastings at Battle Abbey every year, you often see these very early medieval Saxons dressed very much like I am now, with sort of short-nailed burnies, often with these sort of early medieval helmets. They'll be fighting with round shields. They look exactly like the Saxons during their own conquest of England, fighting against the Normans, who have their new sort of long-sleeved mail hauberks and using the sort of newer kite shields and things like that. And again, it's sort of this real clash of sort of the old early medieval world represented by the Anglo-Saxons and the new high medieval world represented by the Normans, and that the Normans with their superior, newer technologies sort of go and conquer the Anglo-Saxons. But of course, this isn't what happened. We have no reason to think this is what happened. Even on the Bayeux Tapestry, which is produced and funded by the Normans, and to sort of brag about their conquests. And so we can think of it a little bit as a propaganda piece. They don't show the Saxons as really looking any differently. The Saxons elites, even just sort of this common Saxon soldiers, aren't that much different from the Norman counterparts. They're all wearing those large mail hauberks. They're all fighting with kite shields. And again, this seems to fit with the other descriptions of late Anglo-Saxon England. But again, there's this, for some reason, we really want it to look, like a new technologically superior force invading these people that are stuck in the past, and that's not what happened. And I think it's a bit weird that we do keep doing this. And again, the way that sort of conquests and sort of more advanced foreign peoples going and invading other territories is often seems to be the only way that technological progress is depicted in a lot of our understandings of the Middle Ages, and the early Middle Ages in particular. And I think that's a bit of a harmful idea that we need to start working to move past.